Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of Sub That Sublimation Graphics and Tutorials here on Facebook. If you're catching us on YouTube, please be sure to come join our Facebook group where all of our videos air live before they are added to our YouTube channel unedited. And of course, if you're catching us live on Facebook, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those links are in the video description depending on where you're watching. Today, we are finally doing the long-awaited tutorial that you guys have been waiting for a gallery wrapped light up canvas. We're going to be using Sub That Sublimation Canvas today, which is a premium art grade canvas that's offered in my shop. This canvas has an 11-ounce fabric weight, is water resistant and non-fray, and I get it manufactured here in the United States. This is our signature product aside from digital designs, and it is very, very popular. So I love seeing all the unique things that you guys do with it. Sub That Sublimation Canvas is ready to sublimate. It does not need any special treatment, and it has much more professional results than some of the alternative methods that are out there. I happen to really be a fan, of course. That's one of the reasons why I brought it to the market. You can use this canvas for everything from mini canvas ornaments for the holidays to canvas wall hangings, reverse canvas, and gallery wrapped photos all year round, as well as things like seasonal decor light up canvases like this one, and even light up canvases for things like nursery decor or teenagers who don't mind things like fairy lights. So lots of options and possibilities, and I'm always seeing new and creative uses in our group from our members who have purchased the canvas. Today I'm going to be walking through the entire process of making one of these. So again, this is a light up gallery wrapped canvas. I'll be showing you guys how to do the gallery wrap, which means that it's wrapped around the frame. I used a frame that I made, so we will show you this, how to size everything, how to measure your frame so you know what size canvas you need and what size to make your print, and then of course how to feed your fairy lights, how to do the entire process from start to finish. So we'll start by doing the measurements of our frame, and I'll show you guys how to use that to determine how much canvas you're going to need and the maximum size of your print. And then we'll hop over to Affinity Designer and come back over here to do all of our pressing and assembly. So let's go ahead and turn ourselves around and get started.
So the first thing we got to do is measure our canvas. Before I do that, Jasper is here to say hello. He says, hi, everybody. Jasper is a cattle dog, for those of you who don't know. That's why he does that chomping thing. To him, that's like a communication. All right, back to our tutorial. Okay, so anytime you're doing canvas that's going to be gallery wrapped, you need to make a couple of different measurements. So the measurements that you need is the length, the height, the depth, and then the width of one of your frame pieces. So what you're going to do is, okay, we'll just get our measurements. Let me write that down first. So we're going to do our length, our height, our depth, and then we'll call the single piece the single width. So this is 9 inches by 9 inches, and I just use 1x2 trim, so it is 3/4 of an inch thick. And 1x2 trim is actually only 1.5 inches wide. Okay, so how we would determine what size canvas we need and also what size our total print is, because we want our print and our canvas to wrap around the sides and on the back. It doesn't have to wrap all the way across, but we do want it to at least come somewhat halfway is what I plan for. So then what we're going to do is the formula here is you take 2 times the depth plus the single width, and then you add that to, so we'll do that. So that's going to be 3 inches. And then you add that to your length or height. So add to length or height. So for our length, we have 9 inches plus 3, so that will be 12 inches by 12 inches. This is the size our canvas needs to be and our total design. But then there's still the main part of your design. If you're doing a gallery wrap canvas, you obviously don't want anything important to be bigger than your front face. So we know our front face is 9 by 9. And because we're doing a light up canvas, we need to actually measure this internal space. So if you made your frame or if you are reusing a store-bought frame, you are going to want to measure that internal space so that you don't size your design, the part that you're going to be putting in the fairy lights, so that you don't size it bigger. If you're just doing a regular gallery wrap, that's not necessary. And this was the first one I ever attempted. I actually messed this one up. This was from double pressing. But I'll just, so this is a gallery wrap. This is the first one I ever attempted. So it's just collecting dust at the moment until I take out the staples and throw away the canvas. But you can see, like, this is the main part of the picture. I didn't want that off of the canvas. I want this zoomed in. I wanted all of this to be on here. And then everything else is just, you know, a little extra water, a little extra moss and rocks. So you want to take that into consideration anytime you're doing a gallery wrap. So just once again, we also need to measure the internal space if you're doing a light up canvas, because you have to be able to stick those fairy lights through the back of the canvas. And obviously you wouldn't be able to do that on the wood. I mean, you could, if you're really adventurous, you could drill holes, but we're going to make it easy today. So, all right, our internal space is 6 inches by 6 inches. Of course, I knew it was already 6 inches since I did make this. So we'll just put our internal space. Okay. So now that we have our measurements, we can go ahead and pop over to our design program and get everything set up accordingly. I'm going to show you a really easy way to do that to make sure all of your sizes are correct. So let's pop on over to Affinity Designer.
As I mentioned, we're going to be working in Affinity Designer. Everything that we're doing is pretty basic, so if you're using a different design software, it should be easy to duplicate these steps. Affinity Designer is our preferred program that we do the most demos with in Sub That, simply because it has an incredibly intuitive user interface that makes it a bit more user-friendly and also faster actions and operating. You can find the features of both Photoshop and Illustrator in one platform, which is another one of the advantages of this software. It also uses 20% of the processing power of Photoshop and is available for a fraction of the cost. If you're interested in checking out more about Affinity Designer, we have our intro to Affinity Designer for Sublimation video linked in the description, as well as a link to where you can purchase this software. We'll start by opening up a new document by going to File and then New. We're going to set our document size to be the page that we plan to print on. So based on the measurements that we had, we know that our total canvas and our print need to be 12 inches by 12 inches in order to wrap around our frame accordingly. So we can use a 13 by 19 page. The first thing we want to do is set up a rectangle that we're going to clip everything into that represents the total measurements. So I click on the rectangle tool and then I'll just click and drag on the screen. Click on the transform panel and adjust this to 12 inches by 12 inches. Now we need a couple of guidelines. The easiest way to create guides, you can always choose to bring them in like this from the sides. Or what I like to do just for a good visual is to just make additional rectangles. So I'm going to click on that rectangle tool again, click and drag, head over to the transform panel. I'm going to make my first one 9 inches by 9 inches because that is the dimensions of the face of our frame. So we want to make sure that nothing important in our design expands past that. And we'll go up here to our color panel. We'll provide it with no fill. We'll click on that open circle, which represents the stroke color on the outside. And then we'll click on stroke and just increase that a little bit so that we actually have a point of reference on the screen. And then again, we will click our rectangle tool and click and drag. This time we're going to make this one 6 inches. Oops, click on our transform panel and make this 6 inches by 6 inches because we want the part of our design that's going to be lit up. We do not want it to expand past this. To help make this easier, I'm just going to go ahead and rename these layers in our layers panel. So our first one is going to be our design line. Our second one is going to be our background face line. And then our last one is going to be our bleed line. We'll just call it bleed line because it is technically the total face that we're going for. Our stroke is a little bold on these, so I'm actually just going to bring it down just a hair. Okay. So I'm going to be printing a design that will be on my shop later today. It's almost ready to go. It's a series. There's a monogram alphabet and there's some different options, but I'm just going to use the one that I've got set up in here today, which has our Santa Claus on it. So we use that place image tool icon right here. And then we'll just click and drag. Now we want this to expand into that first box, that box that we created that says design line. We want to make sure that where we see our little lights, that none of that is expanding outside of the line, but we can continue to, I had the wrong thing selected. We can continue to resize this just a little bit more and try and get it all centered on the page. So remember that this was our internal border. This was our internal border of our frame. And the reason why this mattered is because we want to be able to easily feed our fairy lights into those little spots where it's going to light up. So this puts us, we can move this over just a hair. We've got our Santa nice and centered, and when we put this over our frame, this should be right on point to give us all the space to insert our fairy lights. So we no longer need that design line. You can actually just uncheck that or you can delete it. You might just want to uncheck it so you can save this file for the future. So now we need a background. So I'm going to hit that place image tool again. And I'm going to choose just some white wood digital paper. I'm just kind of looking for something that is that farmhouse look that I love. Because this is on top, we'll just relocate it in our layers panel by clicking on the icon and dragging it down. And we're going to drag it just below that bleed line box. Let's go ahead and get it centered. Make sure it's resized so it covers everything, and it looks like it does, so that's good. All right, so that's going to work as our background. Now, we don't need this border that we created as our background face line, so I'm going to uncheck that as well. Again, you can create guidelines however you want. You can choose to click and drag and just bring them down into where they belong from the top of the screen, or you can use the method that I just showed you with the boxes. I prefer to use guidelines in my real life, but when I'm teaching you guys something, I find that using the set shapes tends to be a little bit easier for everyone to follow along with. Now, the first thing we want to do is click on that background layer that we added, that white wood, and we want to drag it into our bleed box. So this is going to clip it into that box. So we're going to click on that, the name, and drag it underneath the name. So your cursor should be right on the edge of the name, and you'll see that 3/4 of a box appear. And when you let go, it's created that into a group. Now, we want to make sure that everything is centered. Even though we have our snapping grids on and we can see that when we move this around, it does show that it's centered, but I'm still going to just click and drag and make sure I have our bleed box and our design selected, And I'm going to go up to our alignment panel and we will hit the center button. Well, across the spread is fine. Just make sure that whichever ones you do both. And then this align there, and we'll again make sure we're on the spread. There we go. Oh, and we'll hit OK. So now everything is centered and we are ready to print. If you wanted to make sure that this didn't move around, you could also grab your design and bring it into that clipping it inside of your rectangle too. So if you were working on multiple designs that you wanted to print, that might be a better option. Now we'll go ahead and send our file to print. To do this, we'll go to File and then Print. We'll select whatever printer you're using from your drop-down menu. For me, that's my Workforce 7710. I'm going to click on Properties, and I'll set my page type. I already have presets, so I can just select Super B. You can use this Add Remove Presets option to add your own. The main thing is you want to make sure that you are mirroring your image and have that checked under your More Options tab. Keep in mind that your print paper settings are going to depend on your specific printer, paper, and ink. For me, I'm using a Workforce 7710 with printer jack ink and paper. So the high quality plain paper is the setting for mine, but you don't want to copy settings that are not recommended for your ink because it can alter your color. So we'll go ahead and hit OK and send this off to print.
So now that we've got our print, let's have a look at everything that we will need to make our gallery wrapped light up canvas. So we have our frame, which again, I made this just out of some 1x2, glued it together. Pretty basic, anyone can do this. We have our Sub That Sublimation Canvas. If you have not tried Sub That Sublimation Canvas, I highly recommend you give it a try. This is a premium art grade canvas. It is water resistant and non-fray. It's perfect for canvas wall hangings, gallery wrapped photos, light up canvases like we're doing today, and reverse canvas. There's no special treatment or anything extra needed. This is ready to sublimate, and it's honestly very easy to use. You're going to want an ice pick or something similar that you can kind of widen a hole with. I got this off of Amazon, I'm sure. An X-Acto knife to start your hole, just because we don't want to have to stretch out our canvas too much. A light duty stapler. Now your regular home stapler is not enough. You actually do need a staple gun. I'm sure that this came from Walmart. It says that it's Aero brand. It was roughly $12. Some fairy lights. The link for these is in the video description as well. These were a 10-pack off of Amazon for $13. So pretty good deal, quite honestly. There are 20 lights and we've got about 15 bulbs on our wreath, but we can just add a few extra. And then of course we have our transfer. So we're gonna start over on our press. We need to pre-press. Pre-pressing is important anytime you're using a fabric substrate, but it is especially important when you are using Sub That Sublimation Canvas. And the reason why this is so important, is because the canvas is so tightly woven that it does shrink, and the shrinkage is noticeable. So go ahead and set this right on up here. This was just a scrap I had laying around. So it's a little bit bigger than I need. I believe it was supposed to be 12 by 18, but I think it's like an inch short or something like that. But we only need 12 by 12 today, so this will do fine. I'm gonna get I just want to put something to protect this. I'm not sure where my Teflon sheet wandered off to, but we'll just use a piece of craft paper. You want to be pressing with reasonably firm pressure. So no matter what kind of press you're using, you should have a good amount of resistance. Not so much that it's a struggle for you to close, but you definitely need firm pressure when it comes to the Sub That Sublimation Canvas. If you use anything less than the firm pressure you need, and again, not so hard you can't close it, but it should give you a good amount of resistance. If you don't use enough pressure, you'll actually get like a bubble texture to your canvas. And this is because it's heating unevenly. So pressure is very important with pre-pressing. We're going to pre-press at 400 degrees for 30 seconds, and we're just about there. And you can see that we've got, see how it wrinkles? That's normal. That's from the pressure. And actually, it looks like this needs a little bit more. If yours doesn't look reasonably flat when you pull it out, then it needs a little bit more pressing. And this might actually need a hair more pressure. There we go. So we'll give this just a few more seconds. And while it's doing that, I'm just going to kind of move our stuff out of the way here. All right. Much better. Let's bring it over here. Well, we don't even have to do that. This is pretty small, so we can just leave this right on up here. If you were doing a bigger piece, it's good to take it off, give it a second to cool. But since we are only doing this one, and it will fit nicely. Ooh, sorry, guys. I'm a little bit of a mess today. So, okay, since we're doing a smaller piece, we can just actually go right ahead and set that on up there. Put our butcher paper, parchment paper, whatever it is that you choose to use. For me, it's this painter's masking paper. All right, and we're going to go ahead and press at 400 degrees for 60 seconds. So I'm using my Endurapress SD20 that I recently purchased from iColor. You too can purchase one by contacting sales@icolorprint.com. Sub That Sublimation Canvas is incredibly durable and has a lot of uses. And one of the things I like to do with scraps like this that we have, that we'll have extra, is use them for mini ornaments. You can make little mini canvas prints and things like that using little mini frames from the store. So, and Walmart has these little 2-inch by 2-inch canvases that are about that big. They're little wood frames, and the cotton canvas is just glued on, so you can easily peel it off. I don't think I have a demo on doing them, but I'll plan to do one in the future for you guys because it is a cute little, just an easy way to use some leftover scraps that you have. I do recommend buying in the rolls just because it gives you better ability to customize. This is very hot. I'm going to put a heat glove on so I can show it to you guys without burning my fingers. All right, so we've got our canvas print. You can see the colors are nice and vibrant. You get that canvas texture to it. Just a good rule of thumb is don't ever use tiny faces. Santa's not that small, but in general, don't use really tiny like picture faces because they can get distorted by the texture of the canvas. So we've got our print. We'll bring it over here. Now we want to go ahead and trim off all of our excess around this so that we don't have to do a second trim once we get this on our frame. You can do this with a rotary cutter. You can do it with scissors. You can do it with a paper cutter if you want. There are a lot of options. Luckily, it's not resistant to anything. I'm a bit of a sucker for straight lines, so I'm going to move that out of the way. This is a Dahl rotary cutter, DAHLE. This is available on Amazon. They come in a variety of sizes. So I am just going to line that up and trim off our edges. So little scraps like this, even because this is about 1.5 inches, I'll even save stuff like this. You never know when it'll come in handy. I only throw away stuff that's totally useless. So like these 2 scraps are actually a bit smaller. I'm not going to keep those. Those are no good for me. Okay, so we've got our print ready to go. Let me get this guy out of the way. So you can see your design through the back. Let me see if I can move you guys forward a little bit. You can see your design through the back a little bit, and that's going to help you make sure that you get this as centered as possible. And of course, if you're like me, you might just want to take out the tape measure and measure on that side, see what we got here. We should be at, I think, 1.5 inches. So I need to go over just a little bit. There we go. And got 1.5 inches there. Not quite 1.5 inches here. Okay. So it looks like we're relatively straight. Just in case we move this, we're going to take our pencil and we're just going to make a couple little lines on the back of the canvas. This is basically just in case we accidentally move anything and we want to make sure that we're lined back up. You can mark the corners. Okay. Now we're just going to, you can pick any point to start at. You're going to hold your frame down. You're going to pull. I moved it. This is why we make the little lines. Okay. You're going to pull that frame up, the canvas up and over on your edge, and you're going to put 1 staple. You want to make sure you're somewhere in the middle of one of your sides. And then you always want to alternate. So you're going to be kind of alternating and going all around. So we'll do on the other side. Again, you want to make sure you get a nice tight pull. Somewhere in the middle there. And then we'll flip to the next side. And the other side. Now this is a good point to check the front of your canvas, make sure that everything looks centered and whatnot, which ours does. This line kind of throws it off a little bit, but it is centered. That way, if you're not too far along, that if you need to take out your staples, you can. So now we're going to add more staples, but before we do, we got to work about these corners. So for the corners, you're going to fold 1, and you're going to, see if I can get a good vision of this for you guys. You're going to tuck it in a little bit. Just like that. So it'll fold down. Let me see if I can bring this up. So we just kind of tucked it in, folded down. We're going to pull that one over like that and put a staple. Like that and put a staple. Now we're not quite there because we didn't get it quite tight enough. So one more time, we're going to pull it in, flatten it against it, push this part in and fold it down like that, and then fold that side up around. There we go. That went much better. We've got a nice smooth corner right there. So we'll hold both of those in place. We're going to give that a nice staple right there. And we're going to go ahead and repeat that on all of our corners. So you get a chance to see this over again. So we pull, sorry, we're going to push along the side. Let me see if I can do it this way for you guys so it's easier to see. You're going to push along the side and kind of tuck that in. Then you're going to push that piece down on the back so that this part will fold over, and then pull up that side that you had tucked in, just like that. It does take a little bit of practice, so don't get discouraged. The goal is just that you want to have those nice looking corners so that your product does look like a professional did it, because you guys are all professionals doing this. Okay, so one more time, we're going to fold it in, kind of tuck it down in there, push it down on the back of the wood, fold that corner in, bring this piece up, and tuck it. Make sure we got a nice tight grip and staple. And our last corner, one more time, press it against the side and tuck it down in. Push that piece over on top of the wood, tuck that flap down, bring that side flap up over the side, and staple. Now we just want to make sure that we get the rest of these little spots. So we're going to just grab one, pull, staple, go like diagonal from it. Grab one, pull, staple, rotate onto the other side, pull, and staple. Diagonal from that one, pull, and staple. Back onto this side, pull that last piece, and staple. Diagonal from it, pull, and staple. And our last piece. Now, it's not going to pull or stretch a whole ton. It's a little bit different than cotton canvas. Now, cotton canvas has a bit more stretch to it than obviously polyester does, because polyester is a plastic. So if you were doing a gallery wrapped photo print, this would be it. You would be all done. But we want to make this one light up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our X-Acto knife and we're just going to poke a little hole in the center of all of those little lights that I put into our design. This one is right on the piece of wood, so we're going to do it right next to it. There we go. And there's 20 lights on our strand. I counted them. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we can, if we wanted to, add in a couple of more. So we could do one down here, and maybe one extra one here. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now we need to make all these holes just a little bit bigger. So it's a little hard for you guys to see on the camera, but I promise it's easier in person. So you're going to take your ice pick and you're going to find that little hole. So see, all I had to do is press on that and the hole popped up. And you're just going to kind of wiggle it in there. You just kind of turn it around like this. The reason why we start with the X-Acto knife is so that we're not pushing a bunch, we're not like using the ice pick because it's dull at the end to pressing, because that'll kind of create weird divots in our canvas, which we don't want. Oh, well, I can't see that one. So again, we're just using our ice pick to widen the holes where we're going to put the lights. Which is definitely a lot easier to see when your face is right on top of it, but since I have the equipment, as always, it's a little bit of a challenge to work around it. Not quite sure where my hole went there. Okay. All right. And if you don't want to have to try and find your holes after, you can always poke one and then stick that in. Okay, I'm having a little trouble seeing this guy. I'm poking this one from the back because I couldn't see it on the front because it works so well with the light. And then we've got one more here. These would be those extra holes we kind of put in to fill out our wreath. And there's one more. Okay. Hopefully I got all of them. So now it's time to thread our lights. And you can use, probably easiest if you had tweezers, but we'll just try and thread it as is. So you're going to start with the end of your strand, right there. And you can really start any place you want. But keep in mind that you're going to have to tape this little piece somewhere either on the back or either here or tape it inside here. So now we're going to go ahead and take our fairy lights and we want to weave them into the back. You don't want to use the first one because you want to make sure that you can, if you guys can see that you can bend the wire so you kind of stick it up through and then pull it through so that it's stuck. You can stick this through with your fingers. You just kind of tuck it in, push it through, and pull it up on the front. And we're going to pull on that, sorry, I was off camera. We're going to pull off the wire on the wire just a little bit and push it flat against our canvas. Okay, so we'll just keep on moving on. So again, we're just going to kind of fold the wire underneath it, stick it through, pull it down, and bend that wire. Now keep in mind as you're doing this that you're going to want your battery pack is going to, you want to tape it here or tape it on the back. I recommend taping it down in just so it's not pushing it against the wall if you're going to hang this, or just so it's not ugly and unsightly. Oops, I missed one. Sorry, we'll go to that next one. Kind of bend that wire down. There we go. Stick it right up through. Okay. And you can kind of move the direction of the little bulbs too if you want as you're sticking them in there. Some people like to hot glue them in place or use like E6000. You can do that as well. I'm not going to do that today because I like people to have the option. If they wanted to change the lights out for something more colorful. I personally don't like colored Christmas lights. We got a couple pieces in there. For those of you who are joining us a little late, we are doing a gallery wrapped canvas, a light up gallery wrapped canvas using Sub That Sublimation Canvas. So far in this demo, I have walked you through how to measure your canvas so that you have the appropriate size for gallery wrapping, as well as how to set up your design and print it. I'm just gonna move that guy, kind of like that. Kind of trying to make them face different directions. All right, so we just keep moving along. We're sticking our little fairy lights in. We can talk about pricing while we're doing this. I'm sure by now you guys get the point. You fold the wire down, you stick it on up through. So pricing. So the total cost of this little project with the lights is just under $7, that's assuming you make your own frame. Honestly, it's probably going to be about the same, even if you use some art store canvas and take off the old cotton canvas and replace it with the sublimation canvas, just because those are relatively budget friendly. Again, I prefer to make my own frames. It's such a quick and easy process. It's just cut it with a miter saw to the measurements you need, glue it together and clamp it. And then I usually just secure it with some brad nails after the glue has dried. And I like doing my own because I don't have to worry about driving all over town. I can just pop over to Lowe's, which is right up the street from me, and get some of the 1x2 trim. And then you can make it any size you want. So you're not stuck with random sizes that your customers have, or you're not stuck with random sizes that the canvas just already comes in from the art store, like 8x10 and 11 by, what do they do, 12x18 or 11x17. This is also better if you have a smaller printer or heat press, because you can plan to print these a little bit smaller and not have to worry about not having the materials that you need in the sizes that you need it. So that accommodates your printer and your press better. And this little project is great for mini signs. You could actually do this even smaller than this. People love those little mini signs for their kitchen tables or their end tables this time of year, all year round really. But this one just happens to be for Christmas. All right. Hopefully I got enough lights left. Let me see. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm just gonna keep on sticking them in. So the resale point for these is going to be a minimum of $30. If you happen to choose one of for this particular design that I've got in my shop here later today, if you happen to choose one of the monogram ones where you can add people's names, then getting $30 or $35 is no problem. If you're getting ready to do some upcoming shows for the holidays, some craft shows, or if you're just kind of hosting a craft show online on your Facebook page, then you can probably do about $25 for these. So it's still a healthy amount of profit. Okay, so we've got all our pieces in, and we're just gonna tape this guy in the back and tape that piece down. Let me see what I got here. Well, mostly I just seem to have heat tape, which is probably fine. You could also just put a little piece of hot glue in here. Oop. Make sure when you tape it so that they are able to access the battery pack. You could probably just stick this on with a little piece of hot glue, which is what I would do if I had some hot glue, if I had the hot glue gun warmed up. But I didn't think about that. This is actually my first time doing this, just for the record. We're totally winging it. We just might want to add a few extra pieces to hold down the wires, just where it's particularly bumpy. Okay, so let's kind of move our little guys around. There we go. Tuck that one in. He's gotten a little far out. Okay, I'm gonna turn him on. Got a little switch there. And let me turn off some lights so it's easier for you guys to see it. I think even if there you have it. These are the white ones, but they definitely have that like LED blue light look that I don't really love. I kind of, maybe they have clear ones. I guess I'll have to go back and check. But there you have it. There is your gallery wrapped light up canvas. This is a perfect design for the holidays. It's such a great item to sell. And like I said, if you're selling just a one that's not personalized like this, you can easily do $25 to $30. It might seem like a lot, but people will pay that for something that's handmade and unique. They can't go to the store and buy this. What they get from you is completely original. So be sure to keep an eye on our group because this design and a whole bunch more to go with it will be available later today. And they are already up. I just haven't pushed them live. So they will be live later today for sure. And if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you're catching us on YouTube, be sure to join our Facebook group. If you want to purchase Sub That Sublimation Canvas, that link is in the video description, as well as links to all of the products that we use today. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.